Welcome all to this conversation. We're discussing a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and I know many of you are starting your career journeys right now, and you may or may not know exactly what you want to do. I was one of those who was in the boat that did not know what I wanted to do. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of how I got to the position that I am today within Capital One, and also just a little bit about the framework that Capital One uses to deliver work as a team, which is Agile, and how the Agile framework can help establish a diverse team, and you can use some different skills from pockets of your life in order to help grow your technology journey. And so hopefully a few of these lessons may help you in the future. I'm definitely happy to take questions at the end, but I'm really excited to kind of jump in and just get started. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself here on the next slide. I have kind of a unique journey myself. As the title says, my name is Kate Gee. My current role at Capital One is I'm the senior manager over model policy and governance within the model risk office at Capital One. And what that really means here is that Capital One monitors and ensures that their decisioning models and their machine learning models are appropriately governed to the many different laws and regulations that we must adhere to as a bank. Getting into this role, however, was a little bit of an adventure. I was one of the college freshmen that had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my career. I think I had like 5 majors before I reluctantly decided on choosing a major, which was an area of study I just happened to have the most credits in by my junior year. But I knew a couple things about myself as I went through my college journey. The first thing was that I liked working with people, which is a pretty broad thing to, for most careers, you're going to work with people. But I also knew that I liked to solve problems. And so once I graduated, I still really had this fuzzy path about where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So I ended up in a clinical therapy practice, which was a role that I did not expect for myself, but was a role that trained me into being a certified therapist, which is how I ended up with my master's in clinical psychology. I actually worked on that master's while working in the role that I served in for several years. And I know that during that time, I learned a lot about myself. I was working with clients that had addiction problems, and I was also a certified divorce mediator. So I actually got paid to mediate problems between individuals, whether it was over custody or whether it was over finances or whatnot. I actually was trained in that as well. And this field dealt with a lot of problems and a lot of people. So it hit both of the things that I really wanted to do. However, I was still really not satisfied with my career. Once the practice started to move towards a different direction, I actually entered into an entry-level tech role at the only Fortune 500 company that was in the area where I lived. And I worked there for a very short period of time before I started moving up in the ranks and realizing that I was finding more passion in that work than I had previously. This particular company was a dental software company, so it builds medical software that is FDA and DEA compliant. And this was my first introduction into the Agile world. I worked into different certifications and worked in experience, and I did that for several years at Patterson Companies, which was a company hosted in Minneapolis. And then I eventually landed a role at Capital One. My first job at Capital One was actually working at the University of Illinois Data Innovation Lab. So Capital One has several campus locations, one of those being at the University of Illinois, go Illini, and the other being at the University of Maryland. And then there's also other campus presences across the United States that Capital One has. But I started working there with machine learning teams. And I developed a lot of machine learning technical acumen working with that team directly. And I served that team as a Scrum Master. I grew into roles one right after the other. I worked in the Center for Machine Learning at Capital One for approximately 4 years before I moved into the role that I currently have today. And during that time, I won't joke lightly about this, but I used almost as much of what I learned working in the therapy field as I did when I worked in the therapy world. Because at the end of the day, even though you are working in technology, you're still working with people. And the people driving that technology still have the same egos, still have the same motivations, and still have the same feelings that people who you will interact with in different fields, including therapy, will have. So I learned a lot through my professional and my education as well. I've also been pursuing a master's at Georgetown more recently since I have relocated to the East Coast. And being with Capital One has been a really great experience. In addition to Capital One, I have also worked as a wedding photographer over the last several years as kind of a side hobby, as an outlet for my creativity. So I'm going to share a little bit with you about some of that journey as well, and some of the lessons I learned shooting wedding pictures and how that applies to the business world. So the moral of this journey is that anything that you experience can be applied to your professional career if you know exactly how to apply that in a unique and fun way. So I'm going to go on and just talk a little bit about what is Agile and why. So many of you are pursuing technology careers. It's very possible that you'll interact with some kind of development or some kind of methodology in the future. And Agile is one of the more popular frameworks that you'll see around today. The precipice of Agile is that being able to respond to change and being able to be flexible is one of the most important things that a company can plan for. And being able to think about how your organization adapts to that change and look at it as an opportunity for self-reflection to determine whether or not what you're doing in the organization is working or whether or not it needs to be adjusted. There's a saying that Agile produces a giant mirror that will show you all your flaws as an organization when you're building out software that you want to deliver to a customer. The Agile Manifesto, which I've linked here, but you can also Google, it has 4 different principles that value face-to-face interaction, that encourages the response of change over having a rigid, strict plan to follow. It also prioritizes the customer and focuses on delivering working software in repetitive iteration. So in contrast to Agile, there is the Waterfall methodology, which will actually gather the requirements up front and then produce a holistic project at the end. As you can imagine, that may be difficult in order to get technology into the hands of your customers quickly, who are wanting the latest and greatest for their experiences. And Capital One is no exception. There are certainly new features that are rolled out on a regular basis to our applications and to our customer-facing websites. And those are things that help customers get their work and business done and make banking easier. So, just giving some background about Agile in general, in case you're not familiar with it, just certainly wanted to set that stage. On the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about one of the main roles that Agile has at its center, and that is the role of the Scrum Master. And that may sound like a funny name to you, but it is something that addresses a servant leader of the team, someone who helps facilitate and coordinate the team interactions and the team delivery so that they achieve maximum delivery of value to the customer. Some of you may even considered Agile a career path, and I know plenty of individuals who have had an engineering role, who have gone towards an Agile job family and have been completely happy. I also know the opposite. I know a lot of Scrum Masters or Agile delivery leads, as Capital One has kind of rebranded them as, that have gone from Scrum Master work to being an engineer or a developer. There's a lot of interaction between the two and plenty of opportunity for career transition, especially here at Capital One. I think I mentioned before that I've worked several roles since I've hired here. One of those was being a Scrum Master, but Capital One specifically has different roles within Agile that match up to a very specific framework that Agile supports that's called Scaled Agile, where we take a large number of teams that are working towards a similar goal and have them work together. The Scrum Master is the uniter of the team. They help drive consistent and improved delivery. So the kind of joke I have here at the beginning is, a product owner walks into a bar, right? The primary job of a Scrum Master is to help the team remove impediments. And a lot of times the impediment is the person providing the work that needs to be done. So product owners are another agile role that come in to assist the team with prioritizing the backlog of work that needs to be done and delivered to the customer. And sometimes product owners are really needy. They have a lot of things that need to be delivered and a lot of things that need to be done, and they have tight deadlines that they have to meet as well. So one of the primary goals and work of the Scrum Master is interfacing with that product manager, product owner, in order to make sure that the work that's being requested of the team is within their velocity and their capacity to deliver. So they keep metrics and help identify what is possible to deliver. The other component of Agile is a little bit of coaching, and I always throw in just maybe a little bit of therapy in there as well. Agile teams are teams of humans. There's always going to be a human calculation and a resistance, if you will, to changes that happen within the team. I've been at Capital One long enough to have gone through several reorganizations, several different managers, and change is always going to be constant, especially in teams that are working to drive new features and new technology that just constantly changes around you. So the Scrum Master really focuses on how can we respond to change in a way that minimizes the disruption for not just the team, but the product owner as well as the customer themselves and the many, many stakeholders that are there to help. Scrum Masters also help maximize the value. So they assist the business stakeholders with priority and planning to make sure that the work is getting done efficiently. And they also look at the changing business rules and policies that are implemented. If you work for a bank, banks are regulated. So there are rules that we have to adhere to. And Agile development kind of helps respond to those changes when they happen and helps look at the more consistent trends that we have to meet in order to deliver working products that are also in compliance. Scrum Masters also lead teams in what we call retrospective. They help determine what is working on the team and what is not. So there is a period of time in which a Scrum Master will ask the team to look back on and reflect on whether or not there are certain things that are working within the team or that need to be adjusted, such as a planning schedule or a daily check-in that teams do in order to determine what work is being done and what work still needs to be addressed. So there's a lot of different things that a Scrum Master can do, and particularly at Capital One, I want to talk a little bit on the next slide about some of the different kinds of Agile roles and things that we support here within the bank itself. So I have a quote here that we empower teams to continuously deliver customer value. And what that means is that we're constantly churning out new features and new capabilities for our customers that make banking a more smooth experience. And we also do that by leveraging a lot of innovation. So I mentioned before that I've worked on machine learning here at Capital One for the last 4 years in various roles. One of those roles is an inventor. Capital One has an inventor program where you work with your team or work individually to submit patents on behalf of some of the work that you're doing. Interestingly enough, the team that I worked with holds over 100 patents in machine learning in a couple of specific areas. And they're all because of the support that Capital One provided. And myself, I have roughly 10 that I have contributed towards individually. And all of those have to do with some of the innovative machine learning work that we're putting directly into our products and features that are going directly to our customers. If any of you have a Capital One credit card, you've probably interacted with one of the machine learning models that my team has worked on. That would be Eno, the chatbot. So if you ever go on to Capital One's website and you're interacting with the live chat, that little Eno robot chatbot is a product of some of the work that several of the teams I have worked on have completed. Switching back to Agile just a little bit, I like to also touch on the different opportunities, not just in the technology space that Capital One has, but also in the other supporting technology roles. In addition to traditional program and project management roles, the Agile job family at Capital One has really taken off and become incredibly popular. And I think that's because Capital One set off in an Agile transformation many years ago, and they embraced several different Agile frameworks. Obviously, some of the most popular ones you may have heard of are Scrum, Kanban, and more specifically, one I mentioned before, which is the Scaled Agile Framework, which is also known as SAFe, SAFE. And it's important to know that there's no correct framework for any particular team, project, or company that you're going to interact with in your future. And sometimes a variety of different frameworks is necessary depending upon the needs of the organization. The Scrum Master path at Capital One has also been called the Agile Delivery or ADL path. And this Agile Delivery lead has several career growth opportunities that includes people leadership, coaching, being an Agile coach, helping other Scrum Masters lead their teams. And there are more advanced roles within the Agile job family, specifically within the frameworks such as SAFe, which are Agile Release Train Engineer, who manages multiple Agile teams and projects within the Scaled Agile framework. When Capital One went through the Agile transformation in an attempt to unify the company around centralized tracking of tickets and backlog work, it was with the mindset of thinking about how we will respond to change as a company and how we will build a culture of teams that are working on innovation together. And I definitely wouldn't be here speaking with you today if I didn't think this program was a great experience. And chances are at some point in your career in tech, you're going to be working on an Agile team utilizing the Agile frameworks. So getting familiar with the terminology, the different frameworks that there are available is probably going to help you in your journey. And if you pursue a master's degree or additional certifications in technology in your future, I can guarantee that you're going to run into these terms. Being a grad student myself over at Georgetown, I had almost an entire half of a semester that was focused on some of these principles and how methodology is important to technology delivery. So even if you're an engineer or a developer or you want to work in DevOps, you're going to run into this in the future, and it will be helpful for you to understand some of the many different frameworks and the many different routines that exist with the Agile framework. I'm sure there will probably be questions on Agile specifically, but I really want to get to the kind of the meat of our discussion here. And that is that, now that you have this understanding of Agile, and hopefully I went through that with enough clarity that you could follow, and that you've grasped some of the core concepts, it's really time to drive into how your different experiences can help enhance your career, whether it be in engineering or Agile, or you completely decide a different path. All of these applicable skills that you're going to learn in your career are essential to succeeding in the business world and can be learned from a variety of different experiences. I think to the different performance conversations that I've had with managers over the years, and physical job skills, the ability to code, the ability to lead a team through an agile delivery sprint, and to help teams remove impediments is all very specific job skills that require knowledge and a subject matter expertise in your area. But there are also a lot of softer skills. I kind of hate that term, but it's more commonly used. But soft skills that help you facilitate, motivate, coordinate, and sometimes even convince others in the business world to partner with you or to work with you on a challenging project. So human skills are just as important as some of the job specific ones. And I've made the joke to several of my colleagues that over the years, I've gotten more done in the hallway than I have done in a formal meeting. Now that we're all remote, it's a little harder to have some of these hallway conversations, but we are still able to, make changes and get things done in a collaborative fashion, even though we are all currently remote. So I'm going to dive in just a little bit and talk a little bit about the differences between coaching and therapy. So these are some lessons that I learned from working in the mental health field. And to kind of set the stage here, I do want to make sure that I'm clear that, applying traditional therapy methods is very necessary for treating those that have serious mental health or substance abuse problems. These are real people with real issues. Coaching is a different term. It can be done in Agile or it can be done outside of Agile, but coaching is typically reserved for individuals who are in an emotional healthy state and they're looking to make improvements to themselves. I've worked in both positions, both as a therapist and an Agile coach over my career. And I know no matter what you do in your life, you're going to work with people and you're going to need to learn to cope or deal with other people's reactions, potentially their egos, definitely their personalities, and sometimes their vulnerabilities, which are all kind of a part of that personality equation. Both coaching and therapy rely on active listening, a skill that is really difficult to master if you're the type who listens to respond. And you probably know what I'm talking about. You're sitting there listening to someone talk, and you're already formulating your thought in your head about what you're going to say next. So much so that you miss out on what the individual is saying actively. And that can really create a barrier to open conversation. And typically, what Agile coaches do is they help a team to co-discover answers on their own to solve their own problems and can kind of help teams avoid repeating mistakes that they have already made in the past. Specifically, in contrast with therapy, it's important to help a client come to the realization and identify their own self-motivating path forward. So there's a little bit of similarity there. I do want to call out therapy is medically focused on understanding the problem and the cause that's approached in a very diagnostic manner. A good therapy clinician will help address many mental, emotional, or psychological blocks that can come from each person's unique experience. Some of this could be applied to working with people within your team. However, just be advised that clinical techniques should be reserved for professionals, but we can certainly learn from some of the qualities of a good and active listener and how to reflect and learn from past mistakes. Just thinking about coaching in a broader context, it always involves receiving help from someone who is seen as a true partner versus an authority over an individual or a team. So a lot of times the coach is not someone who the team directly reports to. Coaches are invested in helping you find new potential and what is the best decision for the team. They assist you with thinking about what the right answer is, help you identify what the future could look like. And coaching really focuses on understanding the potential in everything, even challenges. For Agile coaches specifically, they can also help tactfully with providing unbiased views on your metrics or your processes for the team. And they're also usually a good active listening ear that can provide you an unbiased view when things on the team aren't going so well. So they're kind of like a third party looking in. Coaches can also help educate the team on the many different aspects of Agile and how the framework can be applied to help the team. And like I mentioned before, coaches are everywhere. They're not just in the Agile space. So if you've already got a mentor, consider also a coach that you can work with to build up your subject matter expertise or someone who can help you make improvements in areas where you feel like you could use that unbiased third party view. And there's certainly a difference between mentorship and coaching. There's many articles on it. I wish I had time to cover it, but certainly read up on those differences because I do want to continue to focus on how to apply some of these tools that you have in both therapy and coaching to kind of help you navigate working with teams kind of here in the next slide. So the point that I really want to drive home is how can you use your experience? How can you use the lessons you've learned to help coach your teams and to help bring your experience to the table? So there's kind of three things that I know for sure, right? The first one is you're likely going to experience a lot of different interactions in your professional life. with a lot of different job roles and families. And you may even want to switch to one of those job families someday, and your diverse experience will make you more marketable. So, as an example, if you're going to be an engineer, you're not just going to work with engineers. You're going to work with business leaders, product managers, project managers, probably someone in DevOps. You're probably going to have a manager that works within the business. And those kinds of interactions are what build your network. But you also need to build your experience as well. So one of the things that I look at when I professionally interview for the technology roles at Capital One is their diverse experience in understanding methodologies, for example. If they have something about Agile on their resume, I want to consider whether or not they have experience working with Agile teams, because that's what we do here at Capital One. So the more experience folks are exposed to as they work with different job families and roles, and the more you learn about other people's background and other people's jobs, the more marketable you're going to be in the long run. The second thing I really want to drive home is that the experiences you have, even in your personal life, even if they have no relation to your current profession that you can still have a profound effect on where you end up in your career and how you work with others. An experience that you may have in your personal life can lead you to think about things differently. They can lead you to make decisions about your career that can change the trajectory of it, and how your personality interacts with others. And the third thing is really, tech is a people business. Decisions are made in hallways and at happy hours. I've seen it. I cannot tell you the number of times that a strategic decision was discussed at an after hours event or was discussed in the hallway after a meeting and then was later pressure tested in the office and implemented within the formal decisions of the business. But decisions like that and those kinds of interactions create bonds, and telling your story and your experience from other companies, from your schooling, things that you learned along the way from coaches or mentorships, can help you build trust and partnership within your workplace. Tech is a human business. Humans create the tech. We don't have a lot of tech creating tech right now, but humans are doing that. So thus, human reactions to change, it isn't always great. Once you understand how your team manages change, you can help your group be more proactive when things don't go as planned. And that's kind of the value of Agile in general, is it values communication in person when possible above all else. But even in this digital world, it is still possible to engage on a more personal level with your peers or your classmates. One of the key things that I learned really early on in my career is how to ask questions that will actually get an answer. If you end a talk or a meeting with, "Are there any questions?" you'll probably get dead silence. And even in person, even if you make eye contact, make people super uncomfortable, and still ask that question, you'll probably not get a lot of responses, and people will probably look away. Specifically, what holds the attention of a small group is asking the question in a different way. What questions do you have? Kind of sets a different tone and a higher likelihood of getting a response. I've also learned that people will share their experiences far more than if you ask them, "What do you think?" directly, but rather if you ask them, "What has been your experience with making this decision?" or "What has been your experience with your past teams?" So Agile provides tools that can be used to help work inside and outside the workplace. And there are numerous online examples where the mindset or the framework has been applied to personal projects, such as Kanban charts that are used for kids to manage their chores. Or I've even seen Agile used as a tool to manage the build of a house. I personally use some Agile concepts to manage backlogs of my own work. And monitor my productivity to whether or not I have additional bandwidth to take on a new project or not. I do that with my personal life as well as my professional life. So there's a lot to be learned here, even just thinking about how you phrase questions that you have to others during a conversation. The next slide, in addition to sharing some experiences that I've had and learned working in therapy field, I also want to share a little side caveat about things that I've learned working as a wedding photographer. I mentioned this was kind of a one-off. I actually did this for about a decade. I recently retired. COVID has kind of made weddings very difficult for people to kind of pull off in the recent years. But I actually had retired from wedding photography right before I moved to the East Coast in early 2020, right before the pandemic really kicked in. But I did learn a lot working with people over the last 10 years that I have been able to also apply to my role in technology. The first is that, in addition to, large companies or even small companies that you're going to work for, you're always going to run into maybe some chaos or some distraction. And the best example of this is, I don't know if you've ever been in a wedding or been to a wedding, but typically the weddings with the largest bridal parties are usually the most chaotic. I don't know why. It's just something that happens. And I'm from the Midwest, so large bridal parties are really common. And sometimes the chaos and the disruption can really create a negative experience for the bride and groom, especially if one or two groomsmen get a little rowdy. So since the focus of the big day is on the bride and groom, I've seen many examples where the bridal party just exasperates the couple that's getting married. Sometimes like a product owner or a business stakeholder or a senior leader can come in and disrupt your teams by saying, drop everything and work on this. Your job as a Scrum Master or as a team leader is to protect your teams from chaos. Much in similar ways to when everything starts going crazy at a wedding, I typically just take the bride and groom as far away from the bridal party as possible, take them for 10, 15 minutes, focus on their relaxation, take some beautiful pictures of just them, let them chill, and then bring the bridal party back in small chunks, right? So basically breaking it down so you can handle it and it doesn't impact your teams. And the parallel to that is when a product owner or a senior leader or business stakeholder comes in and wants to disrupt a sprint that the team has already committed to delivering, it can be very difficult for you to stand up to a leader and say, we cannot deliver that at this time. We don't have the bandwidth. Something must come off the plate, right? So being able to respond to change, but also be able to support your teams and kind of facilitate the exchange of what comes off if this is coming onto the plate. So there's a little bit of lesson there that they have learned from the chaos of large weddings on how to kind of manage and control that. The second part of that is sometimes there's just outside negativity, in a way that there can be overbearing parents or family members at a wedding. They're there, trust me. It's usually an aunt or an uncle, but they have an opinion about everything. Do this, do that, hold your flowers higher. Why did you pick that veil? There's going to be a lot of outside things that are going to impact your team and create a distraction. And as a leader, as a Scrum Master, as a development lead, your job is to step in and sometimes take a little bit of heat in order to protect your teams from negative distractions. And those kinds of distractions in the workplace could be reorganizations. Someone has left the organization and the team's shifting to a new manager. Or there could be political, corporate conversations or moves and maneuvers that are going on. And if you're going to work at a company, there are going to be politics. I can promise you that. There also can just be some general negativity from folks that are working with the team or near the team that are just kind of infecting the morale of the team. So much in the way that you have this happen with weddings, you also want to make sure that you can kind of step in and be that buffer between your teams and your kind of leads or family, if you will, for the wedding. And so I've got on here, not all animals are friendly. I can tell you a lot of stories about animals taking photos as a wedding photographer, from dogs to cows. But I've certainly been in scenarios which there are animals around. I have been stung by bees. I have been bitten by dogs. Cows are very friendly, and they are also very curious about camera equipment. So are goats. So if you're ever doing a Midwestern farm wedding, just know camera equipment is very interesting to goats and cows. But as a Midwest wedding photographer, this holds true that you're sometimes going to encounter different personalities on your team that could be in conflict with others, or where you may even have discourse. In some cases, addressing the cause is appropriate, but sometimes in others, you have to find ways to minimize the disruption and focus your team on the goal at hand. So, certainly worked with teams as a Scrum Master where there's one individual who just doesn't want to go with the flow. They maybe have a problem with the way that the routines or ceremonies are established. They may be constantly late to team meetings. Their delivery may not be hitting the mark that the team expects. So you're going to have to navigate some of these different exchanges as you go on within your career. And you're probably going to work with someone that you don't like at some point. And so finding a way to bridge that gap, to deal with conflict and kind of work with all the different curious personalities that you're going to have is one skill that you'll definitely want to put some time and energy into as you build out your career in technology. I have a lot more stories from chaotic weddings. I've included some photos where I've either ended up wet, dizzy, or soaked. And I know that there are far more lessons that I've learned working in all of these different roles throughout my career that led me to the career that I have today. But we're running shortly out of time, and I know we want to have a quick discussion on some of the different opportunities at Capital One and the different roles that are available. I do want to say from a personal experience, whether you choose to work in engineering, whether you choose to work in development, whether you choose to be a leader or work in Agile, there are opportunities all over the country right now in the technology space. And I strongly encourage as you choose your area of focus, that you also get a more holistic education in the different areas of technology that may impact the work that you do. I think about the work that some of my machine learning teams have done over the years. And one of the things that really stands out to me is many of the things that we built and many of the things that we pursued building as an Agile team, we had the expertise in the machine learning and the Agile completely covered. But one of the things that we had to do was partner with other groups in order to better understand how the work we were doing fit into the larger picture, such as compliance. How will our models be governed? And how will they be regulated against the laws that we have here in this country? The other decisioning we had to do was, how do we make sure that the intellectual property that we are building and the new technology that we're trying to test is going to be protected for the company? So we've gotten a lot of experience in these many different areas, and that will help make you a more marketable associate to other leaders in other countries as you build out your technology career. So I strongly encourage, pick up a book in Agile, pick up a book in cybersecurity, read some DevOps material, even if that's not your area of expertise, because you're going to get a view of a very essential part of technology development that you may or may not work in directly within your career, but you will get exposure to it. I can almost assure you and promise you that will be the case. And if there are gaps that you feel that you have, seek out additional training or additional education in that area. There's so many new opportunities through these online learning platforms that you can participate in to just kind of pick up and gain additional knowledge in that area. So that's my unsolicited career advice from someone who's had 47 jobs. And I will go on to the next slide here to talk just a little briefly about some of the different programs that we have here at Capital One. As I mentioned before, I actually have worked in the campus labs. That was my first role at Capital One, and I worked with college interns, both undergraduate and graduate, during my time at the university. Since moving to the East Coast, I have also worked with several of these different full-time program associates. Specifically, the ones that I have worked with are the Technology Development Program, the TDP program, as well as some of the different new programs that we've rolled out more recently that are in the data science internship program, as well as the data analysts as well. So I've had experience working with many of these different programs, and I strongly encourage you to really think about the kind of path that you want to choose, and whether or not Capital One will be a great place for you. It certainly has been for me. But I'm going to invite Sarah and our recruiting team, Amy, as well, to kind of help talk a little bit about the programs that we have, and just kind of join in and share their experience and what we might look forward to as you pursue many options at Capital One.
Of course, thank you, Kate. And thank you for this presentation. We have a ton of really great questions for you. But before we get to those, just a plug for all of the programs you see here on the screen. You can see that we have a little bit of every flavor, whether you want something in finance, design, technology, you name it. We've got internship and full-time programs for those roles. We are currently recruiting for most, if not all, of these roles right now. So please take a look at campus.capitalone.com. That's where you can get the most up-to-date information on what's still open. Do we sponsor those sort of things? You can take a look at each of the individual job postings depending on what you are interested in. We're getting lots of questions about that in the chat. So I would encourage everyone from here to take a look at campus.capitalone.com. So we are going to go ahead and roll on to questions, if that's okay with you, Kate. We've got a ton in the queue, very thoughtful questions, and we'll get through as many of them as we possibly can.
Sure, yeah. The first one I'll take a look at here. It says, at the beginning, for estimation of time for a project, do you roughly waterfall a project with technical staff and add a reserve of 15% to have an idea of project duration and budget? Then later the Scrum team comes up with goals per sprint. I cannot answer for the whole bank. I can only answer for the technology side of the organization. The majority of the Agile projects that I have been on do not do a budget in a traditional project management way. And there certainly is not a waterfall component that I have seen on the technology side. There may be some teams in card or commercial that are still doing a little bit of traditional waterfall development. But the way that the budgets are done are through a completely different team, our finance partners. So there is an overall staffing and an overall project goals setting that we use to make sure that we are aligned to the goals of the organization. And then typically they're reviewed on a yearly basis. So whether or not we need to continue with a project or sunset a project, those are all decisions that are made within the individual organizations within tech. So, within tech, I've worked with at least 4 or 5 different separate organizations. They all have their own budget. They all have their own methodologies that they choose to work with within that space. The next question is, how closely does an ADL path work with an MPR? I think this is meant to be MRP, which is the Management Rotation Program. I believe that's correct. I have had several MRPs work directly for me that have served as Agile delivery leads. There are options within that program to serve. It just depends on what roles are available and what teams are needing different job families. But there's tons of Agile roles that are available right now. So I think that the MRP program could serve in that position. The next question is, in a very regulated space like banking, how has adopting an Agile strategy thrived at Capital One, and what are the challenges? That's a great question. I obviously haven't been here for the full transformation, but I know that it was a great bonus for us that we started recording the work in a centralized repository. So I'm not sure how many of you might be familiar with Atlassian products. Jira is the main product that is used here at Capital One. But being able to track tickets and the work that's being done within the development teams in a centralized place was kind of a game changer for us in the regulatory space. typically when we are going through exams and we're being audited by the US government, or we're being audited by the OCC or the FDA, I'm sorry, not the FDA, the OCC and the Fed, completely different industry. They don't look at the, at the team development level. They're really looking at our policies and procedures as a bank. So there is a lot of benefit that has come from kind of storing everything centrally. I think one of the challenges has been sticking with it. We got into the Agile framework. We've test driven scaled Agile. We've test driven a lot of different frameworks, trying to get that consistency across the different teams at Capital One, which is a very large company, is probably the challenge we're still working on today. Is trying to get there to be some consistency in the frameworks that are chosen. That goes in really nicely with the next question. How do you decide to use Agile, Waterfall, or Scaled Agile? That is up to the teams that are doing the delivery. Agile is the most common. The Waterfall framework would obviously be a decision if it was essential that the requirements be solidified up front, and whether the budget would support that specifically for that org. In terms of scaled Agile, that's in pockets within Capital One. The scaled Agile work is typically being integrated with platform work. So building enterprise services that are used by the entire company that require teams from multiple different organizations to work together. That is where scaled Agile is most commonly adopted. This next question is exactly more decisions are done in an informal setting. How has a virtual way of working affected creativity and innovation in Agile so far? And how can we adopt strategies to promote this kind of interaction? Every team is different, but I can tell you that we used to make a lot of informal decisions, in the hallway after meetings, or kind of just hanging around the office. One of the things that's different now is we have to schedule that time. So my team in particular, we actually schedule, an hour or two a week to kind of brainstorm and just kind of talk out loud. Those decisions are still being made both formally and informally, but even when we make an informal decision, we always go and kind of pressure test that against the real decision impacts that that's going to have on the team. So we're not changing courses in a split second. We're really being thoughtful about it, but sometimes our best ideas have come from virtual happy hours or virtual game nights or things where we get together and just kind of meet more informally, where the pressure of the workday is kind of off. How would I describe a typical day at Capital One? Well, pre-pandemic, it was very interesting. There was a lot of amenities at our buildings, so like there's no day that's ever the same. Today, obviously, I go to work in my own office in my own house. I'm looking forward to the day that we can go back to the office. But there's also some freedom in working from home too. I've got a really cute dog. I've got an awesome blanket that I sit with and just kind of chill and do my work throughout the day, and endless snacks in my kitchen. However, I spend a lot of the day on Zoom, and I also spend a lot of the day, talking to my team on Slack, also interacting through email, through calendar conversations. And I do schedule some work blocks in order to get some of the heads down work done that I need to do throughout the day. So a little virtual right now, but during the time when we're in the office, there's no day that's ever the same. I've even been on a basketball league at Capital One's McLean office called the Nothing But Neural Nets team, and we placed last, in case anyone's curious. The next question is, what is the most difficult experience that you've had thus far at Capital One? Believe it or not, my corporate card was stolen once at an airport. So I actually had to report my own credit card as stolen. I don't know if that's maybe the worst thing that's happened at Capital One. We've had some disappointments. Sometimes you work on a project that you're really passionate about, and sometimes that project will get, kind of end of life or sunset because there's a new priority that needs to be the focus. So I've worked on at least one project that I was really passionate about. I thought was going to be a really great addition to the Capital One portfolio. However, another team had ended up building it and getting there first. So we had to, kind of pivot and start something new. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but I look back and think about all of the things I learned as a result of that project being canceled. And I don't think that happens very often. I think that when you work in an innovative field like machine learning, there's going to be a lot more shifts than if you're working in more traditional development. It says, thank you for your insights, but I see you have numerous Agile certifications. Which one is the best for beginning or someone readily familiar with traditional project management? I don't have a strong recommendation for you here, mostly because my certifications reflect my career path here at Capital One. I certified in the area where my teams needed the most help, which was scaled Agile. There are a lot of great certifications that are general Scrum Master. I believe Agile Alliance has a general Scrum Master certification that you can achieve. They also have product owner certifications that you can achieve. And there are also certifications for, kind of advanced Scrum Master. Specifically for me, I chose to get certified to teach scaled Agile so that I could coach and certify my own team as I hired them in. So those certifications can get a little expensive. I did several of those through Capital One. And I think all of them are effective and great. It really just depends on what area of Agile you're going to be working in. If you're going to be a specific framework, certify in that. If you're looking for just general education, I would stick to the more basic, Agile scaled Scrum certifications that you can get. This one's a nice follow-up to those questions. Will Capital One help pay for the Scrum or Agile certification, or do you need to have that before? I think it depends on if you're applying for a Scrum Master role that requires certification as part of the main job description. I know that many of our Agile delivery leads, certification is encouraged to have before you apply. The flip side to that is I have had Capital One pay for some of the certification that I have done. I think it is dependent upon the team and the budget, but there are a ton of investment in an associate who wants to do professional development, and Agile is one of the main areas where Capital One will put financial investment into associate growth. It also depends on what your hiring status is also at the time. So whether or not you're a full-time associate, part-time associate, or contractor, there are rules there that I don't have memorized, but they do pay for a great number of professional development certifications, and Agile is certainly one of those. What is the main difference between a Scrum Master and a project manager? So project manager is a more traditional role that is rooted in managing budgets. It is rooted in managing scope and timelines and working directly with product and stakeholders to kind of coordinate the timeline or roadmap for a particular project. And they work on end-to-end delivery. The Scrum Master is a servant leader of the team. They directly represent the team building the product, whereas the project manager is representing the business. And the Scrum Master will work with the team regardless of where they are at in the project lifecycle. So the Scrum Master is really helping kind of run the day-to-day of the team, whereas the project manager is really looking for how to run the end-to-end of the entire project. There's certainly a lot more detail that separates the two. I recommend reading a couple of articles that identify the differences, but that's the main difference. How do you as a Scrum leader balance keeping the customer, target audience, or users involved with the project's process versus shielding your team from constant interference while working to avoid things like scope creep, shifting goalposts, and other issues that could derail your project? That's a loaded question, John. I like that. You have to find the right balance. And one of the things that I do is I keep metrics. I keep proof in the pudding, right? If there's something that you need to communicate to the business and show that this disruption will cost X amount of dollars, that's a great metric to have. I've even walked up to business stakeholders and said, is this worth X amount of dollars for you if we make this change right now? And a lot of times when you put a financial value on it, the decision is pretty easy to make. The other thing that I do is I try to get as much goodwill with the product owner that I can. The product owner is really the key to working directly with getting the business to help align their needs to what the goals of the team need to be in order to deliver on time. So the networking and the metrics is really the key components there for driving successful conversations and kind of avoiding all the things that you mentioned. But there's also a lot of human skill to that too. So sometimes you have to bring in your negotiation skills. Sometimes you have to bring in your divorce mediation skills to kind of mediate between two different parties. There's a lot of soft skill that's in there as well. What kinds of projects is data science used at Capital One? A lot of those. I wish I could give you some very specific examples. I mean, I've certainly worked with the data science community on a variety of different initiatives. I'm trying to think of anything I can share that's not internal. Gosh, you caught me on this one. I don't have anything specifically off the top of my head, but we're hiring data scientists like crazy. One of my friends who's a data scientist just got hired there. Certainly there's a lot of just analyst work. There's a lot of machine learning platform engineering work that's being done. We have a lot of data scientists that are helping us with our our infrastructure and our data patterns. Just a whole lot of opportunity. I wish I had something more specific to share. Would you say working at Capital One has helped provided opportunities to explore different fields, or is it more of a personal choice? I think it's a mixture of both. You kind of have to be motivated yourself to try something new, but also Capital One opens up a lot of opportunity in roles that I never thought I would have. If you had told me 3 years ago I would be, managing model policy for Capital One, I probably would have laughed at you. But it's from the networking, from the conversation. I think that there is a technique to kind of, experiencing different opportunities. Working with other teams gives you that chance, and kind of diversifying your experience. I think I saw I'm allowed to answer one more. So I'll jump in here. Since change is constant in the Agile framework, how do you manage resistance while solution implementation? A lot of that is the soft skills that I talked about. Managing expectations of leaders and helping your team along the change curve. There are several different ways that you can help manage change within your organization. Setting teams up to understand what they gain to benefit from the change, and then also helping the business understand, the financial particulars of what the savings will be if the changes are adopted. I always find that putting a financial dollar on it makes it get a lot of attention. How much time can be saved? Time equals money, right? If we can save X engineering hours on this project by implementing this particular change, that's X amount of dollars. That there are a lot of different things that could be done with that money instead of investing it into additional time. So hopefully that's a very basic way of answering that. There are so many great questions here. I'm sad I can't answer them all, but I'm more than happy to to connect offline if that's fine. I left my email here at the end. Feel free to send me an email or interact with our recruiting team. They can also direct you to folks that can give you additional answers as well. I'll turn it back over to Sarah and Amy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. That was a wonderful presentation and a rapid fire question. So appreciate all your insights and your takeaways. Thank you all for joining today. I think this is a great session. You should be getting a recording afterwards. I'll pass it over to Brandon if there are any other kind of wrap up logistics.
All righty, thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, as Sarah said, keep an eye out for a follow-up email. But beyond that, if you're interested in any roles at Capital One, feel free to check out their company profile, which I'll post that link in the chat one last time. But once again, thank you so much for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.